Okay. Hello and welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. And before we go any further, we do owe Weird Willow a flippin' game, at least one flippin' game, for that donation to Extra Life. Thank you so much. I'll even do a spin because I like the spinning mode almost as much as the flipping mode. It's pretty great. Okay. But moving on with the introduction. Hello and welcome. Last time on Plugging Along, we finished up the initial logic that changes which priority anthem is shown based on which anthems you've already got active and which other anthems you have trained. However, the algorithm that we coded up checks every half a second regardless of whether it's needed or not, which is a lot of wasted effort. So today I'd like to do some code fixes and cleanup and variable renames and whatnot, but I do want to go ahead and fix that algorithm to know when the next time we want to check is, instead of just doing it every half a second, whether it's needed or not. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. They can be about what we're working on today. They can be about plugins in general or LOTRO even more in general. It's all good. That's all on topic. So let me go ahead and... Oh, hello, Lord Zach in chat. Welcome. Let's go ahead and make sure these other windows can be visible. Awesome. So, as always, well, as has been the case recently, I'm using a couple of free tools available. I'm using Visual Studio Code as the integrated editing environment, and I'm using the LOTRO API extension created by community member Lunar Water, which does a great job of providing IntelliSense for the LOTRO specific stuff. And I'm using the fork tool available from fork.dev to wrap around my Git repository so we can take snapshots of things we're working on. Speaking of which, I did a few snapshots after last week's stream, so we can go ahead and get caught up there. And there's a question in chat for Little Redhead. Do they have VIP items on the Legendary server? Yes, Little Redhead is answering that in chat, but I can also answer that. We have the subscriber buffs available, accelerates crafting time, prevents item wear. This is the Treebeard server, by the way. Prevents item wear from combat, crafting, and defeat. And we also have access to the subscriber town services. Good point. If I walk to the edge here, we can even see Winda Cranesbill VIP rewards. Fun fact, you can name a character Winda with the family name Cranesbill, and VIP rewards is oddly a valid name for a kinship. Except I've already got it on Treebeard. But if you want your own Winda Cranesbill VIP rewards, the clock is ticking before other people realize this. Hop on it. Actually, the tricky thing is finding her exact outfit. I have not found that exact robe that she is wearing, and I covet it. We are hanging out here in Bree above the three-bore fountain area here. Because I have a suspicion we're going to want to make use of some training dummies, and it looks cool. All right, so before we get started on that, what changes happened after last week's stream? Actually, I'm just noticing my camera got tilted a little bit. Oh, it's fine, I guess. Okay, so we had some to-do file changes, nothing big there. This was a change done on stream that I was very happy with, but it didn't get committed. The locale-specific width for the width of the anthem box, so that we don't have to just accommodate the longest string German by having a super wide box for all three languages. That was pretty neat. I noticed some unused variables were sitting around. Might have done that on stream, but this is the snapshot that removed them. This was the initial logic that we did up in buff window, main, and settings. Some extra new lines crept in, just get rid of those. At some point I wrote if effect is not equal to nil. That feels redundant to me. Like, if something is nil, it will not evaluate to true, so you can just say if thing. That's fine. At least as far as I know. If I have misunderstood a critical thing of Lua, let me know. There were some write lines that were in the code that were still getting spit out. The anthem reset time changed. Didn't want that happening all the time. And the some comments that were my sort of pseudocode for what we would do, and then I forgot to remove them when we actually did the thing. So that was a little whoopsie. That kind of code cleanup happens all the time. It's totally fine. I went ahead and got some pre-translations of some text we would need this time. Hello, Jason in chat. Pre-translations of stuff we would need this time. So I knew we wanted the "you have acquired the class trait blah," and the reason I'm going with that is you can acquire anthems simply by spending class trait points, and so the special message, which kind of tells you which class trait point you've acquired. Let's actually make that happen right here now. When you first come on in. Let's see. You have acquired the class specialization bonus trait. That's a way you can tell that you're switching from one trait tree to another, but it doesn't help you with the issue of 2 of your anthems, maybe 3 of your anthems? Yeah, Anthem of Composure, Anthem of Prowess, Anthem of the Free Peoples, and Anthem of Compassion, and Anthem of War. These can all just be purchased by spending class trait points. And so by watching out for the "you have acquired the class trait blah," you're going to see a lot of these when you are changing class trait trees, but you'll also see them just one-offs as people spend trait points. And so we want to see both of those cause a recheck within our logic. So we had the advancement trait acquired text in English, and then I went ahead and grabbed the French and the German, and that just takes a little bit longer because you do have to exit out completely back to the client in order to change languages. The launcher. So you have to exit out of the client, back to the launcher, and then you can use this little button, fourth from the end, that says either ENDE or FR to change your language to one of the other supported languages. Okay. And then we're here. We have a clean working directory. The only change we have is our option window.lua. And we're ready to start thinking about things. Okay. So that's not the one I wanted. Visual Studio Code, please. So the one thing I like to have open is the to-do file to kind of keep me on track if you're using a bug tracker or a feature tracker system instead, which would be a better way to do this, definitely. Then that's having that open in that hand also very handy. But what we want to do, is that even in here? Might be down here. Oh yeah, so we have a couple of bugs that are popping up because we don't have a consistent way to ensure that we're seeing that stance change. So definitely one of the things today we're going to do is add the parsing of the advancement chat. And before we do that, I keep saying that I want to fix a thing, and which is that when we were first making variables to track the names of, in this case, anthem effects, I foolishly did not include effect in the name. And now that we're tracking skills and anthems, but they don't always mean the same thing, and they're not always in the same place, I really have regretted not ending this with effect. So we're going to go ahead and just take care of that right now. And so the easiest way to do this, if you can do an exact search, so for instance, if we could use a regular expression to say that we're looking for that with a space. We're not always going to be using a space, are we? I need a word break. Oh, what's the regular expression for a word break? Let's find out. So, regular expression word break. Neat. \b. Let's try that out. So what I really want is \b, \b. So just this thing but not, because the problem is we see the exact same text in the skill name, which is understandable. So we want to go ahead and add effect at the end of these, but not also find the skills. So we can do that pretty easily. We have the anthem, I'm in the German one already. We can see we're using these valid anthem effects. This is a great place to just go ahead and replace them all. And Arthur says, regex or pattern? Because this is in Visual Studio Code, I'm going to say it's an actual regex. But yes, you are. It is valid to point out that in Lua you have patterns, and they're very reminiscent of regular expressions, but they are a little bit different. I will try not to interchange the two terms constantly, but it does happen sometimes. Okay, so we saw that was being indexed here in the valid anthem effects. We can see it's also being used in settings. So anthem effects to anthem skills, we definitely want to see effects on the left side and skills on the right side. So this is a great place to go ahead and paste in. And I've just copied effect to the clipboard, so I'm just doing a bunch of pasting here. And I'm not just doing a find, replace all, because I do want to have some oversight just in case. Anyone who's been here the last couple of weeks will know that SSG is participating in Extra Life to raise money for children's hospitals to support children's healthcare. The healthcare process. If you have disposable money and like to donate money to charity for good causes, this is certainly one of those. And you can get some cool in-game rewards for your donation. And I would like to point out that SSG, the team, has currently raised $19,846 out of the initial $20,000 goal. And it would be tickled pink if they crossed that border during tonight's streams, with some progress made during Heart of a Hobbit and now with Plugging Along. So that would just be very amusing to me, given that this feels like a fairly niche stream. Thank you to any of you who are here watching live. But yeah, if you have a desire to join in on that and haven't done so already, where is my file with that extra information? Oh, there it is. Haha. I have a number of windows open right now. There we go. Someone adds, can you add Turkish language? What a great question. So a plugin can support any client languages it wants to. But right now, the client currently officially only supports 3 languages. The 3 that Lord of the Rings Online supports are English, French, and German. And so those are the ones that every time they bring out new content, they release 1,000 new quests, 500 new deeds, a bunch of new NPCs to talk to. Every word of that gets translated from the English that it's probably written in to the German and the French for release. And sometimes there's some mild differences between them. For instance, we saw some of the minstrel effect names had not been localized last time I checked. And so that may very well come with the Before the Shadow release or in an upcoming update, but it just wasn't quite ready in time for the whatever release it was, like update 33.2 or something. So the Turkish language, the idea of adding a language to Lord of the Rings Online involves, for a professional company to release it, localizing everything. Like they're not going to just localize a few things, translate it to Turkish, and call it good. They would want to do everything. Every NPC dialogue, every quest, every deed, all of it. And so the reality is, I don't think that's on their radar. And I can't speak for them because I'm not an SSG employee. But I don't think that's on their radar to do any new languages anytime in the near future. They have a lot of other technical and game challenges that are higher on their priority list. And so we've had that same question from, say, a Brazilian player last week, was, wouldn't it be cool to have in this language? And the answer is absolutely. If I could wave a magic wand, I would have this localized into Dutch, Turkish, Portuguese, all sorts of languages that would really increase the audience, but also the maintenance costs for the game. Every new language that SSG adds would add that much more cost to developing new content. You know, if it costs generously 50,000 American dollars to localize content into a language, they're already absorbing that into French and German for, say, Before the Shadow, and to say, oh, cool, on this new one, you're just going to do, another 7 languages. Well, that takes a lot of money, and maybe that money would be brought back by subscriptions from that language, and maybe not. I mean, I'm certainly glad I don't have to be the one who has to make that business decision, because it's doesn't sound like an easy decision to make. There's also, especially in this day and age, a lot of people who, even if English isn't their native language, their mother tongue, they still have enough fluency with it where they can engage with the game and have fun with it. So, SSG is probably looking at a world which has a lot of English saturation and saying, yeah, it would be nice to localize to these other languages, but it will also be really expensive both now and forever, unless they decided to drop the language later. So those are my non-official thoughts on the subject. I think it is unlikely to happen. I think it would be awesome if it did happen. Lord Zach in chat says, you tested if variable versus if variable does not equal nil in a loop 10 million times, and it is slightly faster, not much difference. 0.18 versus 0.2. I assume those are seconds for the whole thing. I would not have thought it was a much of a performance issue, certainly not for a single comparison, Lord Zach, but it just looks clunky to me. It's like if you're in code and you write like if true, or if var equals true. I mean, at a certain point, it's like, why not just say if var? It feels more fluent for me. Like it's neither one of them is right or wrong. It's about preferences. But I feel like for me, if I'm checking the Boolean status of a thing, then just toss it into an if statement. Don't bother comparing it against anything else. Whoops. That's the wrong link. But it's cool to know there could be a very, very slight performance difference, but probably not. This says, interpreter probably optimizes it anyway. Yeah, it's very true. For a 10 million loop, a 0.02 second difference feels very random fluctuations and not necessarily an actual performance difference. And since we're not doing it 10 million times, it's an amusing notion, but yeah, for me it's about writing code that is clearer and then also avoiding obvious terrible performance if we can do that. Okay, so neat question. Thank you, Hey in chat. Hey Van Adam. Sure. Localization. It's kind of like building a road. Like if you're a city and you want to build a road. Not only does the road cost money, but now you have committed basically to a forever debt of maintaining that road, probably resurfacing it every 20 to 30 years, depending on the lifespan of that road. And so you better have a lot of good reasons to build the road and a perpetual source of income to pay for it. Otherwise, you've just paid a lot of money up front and have committed to forever paying more money. So yeah, infrastructure is great. Localizing to other languages is great. I'm going to try not to get distracted talking about infrastructure here. And we'll move on to something else. Okay, so we have icon skills. So this is a great example of why I wanted to rename these variables. We're using an effect, but we should be using a skill. So we're going to go ahead and rename these to be skill. And that will more directly map the idea of an icon to a skill instead of an icon to an effect name. But we do want to go ahead and then say, hey, where was icon skills being used? Nowhere yet. Okay, so we don't need to change anything about that. All right, can I do a search history? I can. Awesome. Okay, so we want to go ahead and get effect into the names in the German and French files as well. If I were being really clever, oops, well, that wasn't the clever I wanted to do. Interesting. I would actually do a multi-select and then just move to the end of the word and then just paste it in. That would be cleverer. So in Visual Studio Code, if you hold down Control and Alt, you can use the down area to do a multi-select. You can see I've got a cursor at the beginning of each of these lines. Then I'm just going to use Control right to move to the end of this word and then paste in the effect. And that just modifies them all with the same change. Or you can just type in the word effect. It acts the same way. Okay, same thing here. We can just go ahead and add an effect and come on down here. Yeah, Lord Zach, you can use Control right and Control left to skip to the beginning or end of the current word. So for instance, if I'm in this line here, at the very beginning of it, if I press Control right, now I'm at the start of him. Control right, I'm at the end of him. Control right, I'm at the end of the next word. And of course, that kind of breaks down as a very English-centered parser. So we can see it got caught up on that apostrophe there. But basically think of a letter chunk, a chunk of letters and possibly numbers. You can skip to the end that way. And you can use Control left to go. So if you have a line of text and you're like, oh, I need to edit something way over there, it's sort of it's a midway between just using the home and end keys. So if you're looking, oh, I want to change the to something else, end, back, and then you're there instead of just clicking and holding the left or right. So it's very useful, especially if you want to get your hands off of the mouse keyboard track and just kind of keep them on the keyboard a little bit more often. Okay, and then we'll paste an effect here, and that's it. So we can double check ourselves, just popping back into the game. Loading, and we can see we do not have a syntax problem as of yet. I'm going to go ahead and rescale this UI up to 2.0, make it a little bit easier to see during the stream. Okay, how's that? Looks good. You'll have to see if you can use that in MS SQL. If they are using standard Windows components, like text boxes, labels, and that sort of thing, then I would expect so. This isn't a unique thing to hear. Oh, cat's getting treats in the background. I wonder if that chair could move just a little bit to the left. Well, this way.
Left. I mean, yes, but he might not stay. I think he liked the under the table aspect of it.
He probably did. That's okay.
But I'll try.
So if that was in Visual Studio Code. If I come on into say fork, and I say let's look at this message here, and I want to move through word chunks, and I just do Control right, we can see it's just there because again they're just using a standard Windows component for a text box. Probably. And so you kind of get it for free. That's too bad. Shift Alt and down arrow you can expand. You can try to multiple rows. Yeah, so yeah, Shift. If you hold Shift and go up and down, you can. Let's see, what does Shift do? Oh, that's weird. Control right breaks this. That's, yeah. Oh well. You gotta find what works for your program. Okay, so that was some basic changes there. And so let's go ahead and take a snapshot of that before we move further, because we don't want to conflate those changes with anything else that we're doing. So we can come on in to our source control here, and we can just review what we did. Cool, effect, great. Effect, awesome, effect, great. And in the settings, effect and skill, great. So we'll start with the effect stuff. And this was just renamed effect variables. And that's it, it's just a rename. But then we do have this, and we can say changed icon skills to have values of skill instead of effect. Cool. That probably should have been the same commit since these variables are no longer valid anymore. but that's okay. Sometimes they're just, oops, 2 commits in a row. Okay, awesome. So, that was just nice to have, and hopefully that kind of including the semantics in the variable name. Hey, Casper. Help us to realize if we're using, say, the name of an effect in a place where we're expecting a skill or vice versa. Just like this, when we had icon skills equals icon and then an effect name, because we didn't have effect in the name, it wasn't as clear what was going on. Great. All right. We got a Casper on stream here. He's taking a liking to that chair today. Yeah, so if you can incorporate the semantics in the variable name, this is a skill, this is an effect, it can really help you catch, especially when you're dealing with multiple things that have a lot of overlap. These are all skill related, but some of them are the names of skills and some of them name the effects that are produced by the skills, and in general, they're just not the same thing. And whether you find that frustrating or not, it's something we can work around. Okay, so the next thing we wanted to do is to detect if an anthem becomes available due to trait point spend. And what we saw last time is that we can track this with the advancement chat. But we have a little complication here because the Minstrel Buff plugin already had a component that was looking at chat. That was the Soliloquy Tracker window, I believe. So let's go ahead and pull that up and come on into, we have something called Enable Disable Chat Monitoring. That seems plausible. And in this, we have a turbine.chat.received equals function. This is an example of a single dispatch event system where there is a thing, and if it is equal to a function, it will get called, and if it's not, it doesn't. Now, it might be the case that internally, for turbine objects, they understand a multiple dispatch and can do it. But I get a little nervous about turbine objects. I don't know if they will respect an add event, remove event kind of system, or if they're just assuming there's a 0 or 1 here and that's it. If you actually know about this, please, I'd love to hear about it in chat. But for now, we can work around this by assume it's 0 or 1 things that can be in this received, and then just have a central point in your plugin that dispatches yourself over to the various components that care about chat. And so that's what I'm going to start with. But if anyone knows for sure if you could use the, and what are we using in here? The add callback and remove callback style things, which is if it's nil, put a thing in there. If there's already something in there and you're adding one, go ahead and convert it into a table. And if you're removing things and you're let's see. Oh, it looks like this one never devolves from a table, it looks like. You just get an empty table eventually. Yeah, sure. Why not? All right, so what we want to do is probably use our main function, a main file, to start doing the chat monitoring here, and then dispatch that out to the buff window now, and also the Soliloquy of Spirit. And for that, we want 2 functions, or we could do it all in one, but I'd like to do it in 2 functions. So we want a Minstrel Buff main, we want a initialize chat monitoring function, and then from here, yes, I think. So you can do an anonymous function. What we want to do is just what we saw before. We want to do a turbine.chat.received equals, and this is going to be an anonymous function that takes a sender and args and do something here, and that you can either do it inline or we can just call a companion function. And I like the idea of calling a companion function here. So minstrel buff main, and we're going to call it, handle all chat. Something like that. And then from here, we can go ahead and self-dispatch that to self handle all chat sender args. And then we're done. That's all we needed. I should spell handle in the American way, not the Dutch way. That'd be very good. There's a lovely consistency here. If you have the L sound, it's EL. You don't do LE. Handel, DEL. I like the streamlined nature of that. It's good for me. Oops. Clicked and dragged when I didn't mean to. Okay. So really the question is, what are we going to put into this handle all chat window here? Oh, we are a 2-cat room at the moment? Yeah, okay. Is that even visible? Kato, I think you're below the camera. Oh, no, I'm just blocking you. Oh, well.
Oh, yeah.
They're watching. Okay, so here's what we need to do. And so what we want to do is, what do we want? The soliloquy tracker window. It wants to know about chats, right? Wants to know about chats. And we also have the buff window, wants to know about chats. And so we want to do something here to tell them about it. So they each need a function that says chat received. Okay, cool. So for the soliloquy tracker window, we already have some chat stuff. So it can be helpful to go ahead and kind of review what's there first, and then start changing it. Okay, so we have a function in soliloquy tracker window, enable disabled chat monitoring, and we can see what's going on here. That function gets called, and then based on the self.used, we either have a turbine.chat.received or not. And so we're turning off chat monitoring by saying, don't tell us about chat. But we can't use that strategy anymore because the buff window might still want to know about chat. Now, it might be possible to independently, soliloquy tracker window and buff window, to say, yes, I care about this. That's actually a really interesting idea. Okay, so buff window and soliloquy tracker window should tell main when they do/don't care about chat. That would actually be really a way to hoist this logic up. We need to care about chat for buff window and or soliloquy tracker window until we don't. And so if either of them say don't care about chat, but under the covers, buff window is always going to care about advancement chat as long. Oh, that's a fair point. I did have thoughts about turning off or having an option for this anthem priority thing. Maybe some people just don't want to be told what their next preferred anthem is, even though they're the ones who said it. And in that case, if buff window doesn't care, the soliloquy tracker window doesn't care, then we would want to go ahead and respect that. And since these are Boolean checks, we should go ahead and incorporate that. So buff window and soliloquy tracker window should tell main when they do/don't care about chat. I'm good with that idea. And so what do we have? In main, I'm a little worried about having these as standalone variables instead of like a table of components that care about this. But we only have 2 components that care about this. So a table feels like overkill. So we're going to say self.buff window wants chat. Chats equals false. And soliloquy tracker window wants chats equals false. And we can use these here. So if self soliloquy tracker window, then do the thing. And then same thing with buff window. If self buff window wants chats, then okay. So that's going to give us an ability to hoist out the logic that Soliloquy Tracker window is doing and incorporate it into buff window as well. Okay, so enable disable chat monitoring. And we can see here that used and chat monitoring are the same kind of thing. So we can say mb main, and then we need that Soliloquy Tracker wants chats equals self.used. And since Minstrel buff main handle all chat is not going to dispatch to Soliloquy Tracker window to this chat received, unless this is true, then that's accomplishing that same thing. And we can do the same thing, self.soliloquy tracker window chat received sender arg. So we can go ahead and send that off. And is that the right variable locally? Self.soliloquy window. Why was I inconsistent? I don't know. Okay, so soliloquy window, and then we have a chat received. So we're dispatching that on over. Okay. So this function now is no longer valid because we can't overwrite turbine.chat.received anymore. Cool. But we're still making use of enable disable chat monitoring. So we use it in a couple places. Yeah, 2 other places. So we can just leave that as is. It just got simpler. And making things simpler is great. Okay. So what else do we have for chat? Well, we have check for Soliloquy Spirit. We're getting an args. Where is that coming from? Chat received. Okay. So now that this chat received is being called by main, we know it's only being called if we're in use. That's good. Okay. And that's it. So that gives us all the changes we want for the Soliloquy Tracker window part of it. Now, Soliloquy Tracker window isn't going to stomp on the chat received bit right here, turbine chat received. So we are good. Now we just need the buff window side of things. So we want to be able to call the same thing, self.buffWindow chat received sender args. We want this, but we don't currently have it. So let's go ahead and grab the chat received. We can actually just sort of copy paste some stuff here on into buff window. At the bottom's good. So we're going to want a buff window chat received. And in here, we can do the stuff. Now, we actually only care about the advancement for right now. So we're going to do something very similar, right? I don't know. Let's. What do we want in here? This is not correct, but we want. We're going to be looking for something like. Oh, what was it? You have acquired the trait : and so something we mentioned last time that's on my head is when you change trait trees, you get a bunch of these messages, right? And so it would be impolite of us whenever you change trait trees to parse every single one of these lines just in case they say you have acquired the trait. If you see one of these lines, you might see more. You don't care about them. Not for a few seconds anyway. And so once we see it, yeah, don't bother checking for 5 seconds. Something like that. And that will give us the... Well, that's interesting. We have class trait and we have trait. I wonder which I localized. And if that's going to come back to bite. Oh, that wasn't in here. That was in the possibly needlessly split out. Okay. You've acquired the class trait. And okay, I think I did class for all of them. So we'll say class trait. I'm not sure what the difference is between a trait and a class trait in this context. So, well, I see Anthem of Compassion is a class trait. That's a good sign. Let's see, what else do you have? The trait, bolster our courage. All right, bolster. So traits might be the ones on the left of this trait tree, because this is bolster our courage here. An improved bolster courage, probably a class trait? Yes, it is. Okay, class trait is great. Good job, me localizing things. Oh, I actually like that in here. Okay. Actually, I feel like, again, splitting this into 2 functions. One function to check for the channel, and handle advancement event chat. Event chat? Advancement chat. And then let's go ahead and move this on in there. I like the idea of separating the concerns of finding out if this is a chat we care about and dealing with the chat. And it feels a little silly here, but in those cases where suddenly you're looking at a second or third or a fourth chat channel, it feels a lot more readable to split those out into different places. So in that case, we're just doing a self handle advancement chat. And we're going to go ahead and send args.message, I believe. Bim's in chat. You just joined today's stream. Is this parsing chat for strings? Yay, you're just trying to figure out the API calls for that. Cool. Absolutely. If you just joined in, then let me go ahead and pop open, first of all, the API documentation. Now, this API documentation, you can find this on the wiki. This is the downloadable form that I've just got running on my local system here. And we'll just place it underneath me here. The thing that we're specifically looking for is under the turbine namespace, so turbine chat. And what you want to do is assign your function to the chat received. And so what that looks like in our main is you have a function that you call once. I just call it initialize. I haven't called it yet. Should probably do that. MB main initialize chat monitoring. There we go. So you call the function once. Oh, cool. You call the chat, call this once, and in it, well, you can call it more than once, doesn't matter, but you're going to assign a function, in this case, an anonymous function, to turbine.chat.received, and in this case, all we're doing is dispatching that to a class function called handleAllChat. There's conversation in chat that I'm interested in looking at. I'll come back to that. So in this case, we have a sender and args, and in the received documentation, we can see the event sender and the event arguments, but what we're really looking for is the args.message, and you also have an args.sender chat type. Chat type is an important one. So that's going to tell you which of the channels it is. These mostly correspond with your in-game channels. Death is actually combat other. I know that's an exception. But most of these are pretty easy to match up with the in-game chat channels. And so if you care about a specific channel, so for instance, in here, if args.chatType equals turbine.chatType at advancements, it's highly recommended you do kind of constrain this down because there are a lot of messages that flow through the game, especially from combat, when you're in combat, especially in World if you're on an active server. And so do pay attention to which channels you actually care about. I do see that code is still in there. We'll get that fixed up there. Okay, so there was a question about, Baz wondered, how long does it actually take to parse these strings? I'm under the impression that chat parsing is lightning fast. And I have thoughts on that. Lord Zach pointed out that the Free Quest 2020 is over. I hope everyone got to take advantage of the Free Quests code this year. And it's amazing how much content you can play in Lord of the Rings for free with one of those. Agartha says typically Lua patterns are used for the matching and they are fast. And yes, in general, pattern matching or regex parsing is fast as far as string comparisons go, but strings are still much slower to do checks and comparisons and whatnot than numbers or Boolean values in just about every language that I can think of. If you can find in languages where strings are faster than integers to do stuff with, you have found a very strange language as far as my brain works. And so, in general, if you can avoid doing, like the fastest string comparison is the string comparison that you don't do, right? So if you can avoid doing that by, say, if all you care about is advancement text, then only look at advancement text. This check here, if it's advancement, is faster, pretty much guaranteed, is faster than just checking the two strings to see if they match. And also, you avoid funny little bugs. For a while, I think this is fixed now, but for a while, Titan Bar was checking for reputation gains or losses indiscriminately. And so it was looking for it on, specifically you were looking in one channel, I want to say standard chat channel, I have to double check that. But if your Titan Bar saw a correctly formatted string in world chat, then it would think you had gained that reputation. Like you could just paste that into your world chat, and anyone using that old version of Titan Bar, they've just gained or lost that much reputation as far as Titan Bar is concerned, because it wasn't narrowing its scope to the right channel. And so even if there's not a performance reason to do this, there's a reasonable level of plugin workingness argument to be done. Like your plugin should not respond to random people in world typing things, unless that's its goal, right? Like. Casper's asleep right now. I'm impressed he can sleep through all this excitement. Okay. So that's my opinion on string parsing, is it's not slow. You can certainly do a lot of it. Especially, modern computers, they're doing millions or billions of things per second. What's a little bit more string parsing? But, okay. Ben says, sweet, you just solved what I was trying to figure out last night. Thanks. You're welcome. Not sure which part was the problem, but glad to be of help. All right. Unlike regex patterns don't require a full-blown finite state machine. Yeah, I appreciate the things that Lua does to try to be a friendlier language, both for us and for the program that's hosting it. Baz says, the only problematic chat channel I would expect is the loot channel. I think combat is very chatty, for lack of a better word. if you are in a combat, you are going to just see a whole bunch of messages come through. So unless you actually need to pay attention to combat channel, and there are 3 combat channels, so you might not need to pay attention to all of them. There's the combat enemy. What is the things around you doing? What are they doing? There's the combat player. What did you do? And then there's the combat event, which includes things like you died and your if you're a hunter and you have a little decoy, the decoy died, that kind of thing. And maybe some other messages, but death is a big thing. And that's why the chat channel is called Death, right? Originally, that's what was in there. And so if you only care about players dying, then you can just skip the combat enemy and combat player and just pay attention to the players dying channel, for instance. So, yeah, combat is a big one. Loot might be kind of talkative. World and trade and LFF, depending on the servers you play on, can be very chatty at times. But really, combat's the big thing, because you can be in a combat with 5 or 6 things, do an area effect, they do stuff to you, and suddenly, in the space of a second, you've had dozens of messages. Yes, standard chat is full of reward track spam. Bims, that is a little derailing, but it's totally fine. Let's come on over to the wiki API. So let's LOTRO Lua API. So I've gone ahead and pasted this link in chat. Feel free to follow along at home. And let's go ahead and drill on down into LOTRO API reference. And then we want to come on into turbine.ui. I want to say it's in LOTRO. Yeah. So one of the nice things about the LOTRO interface documentation is that it has a lot of the values for enumerations. And so if you click on through here, you can see these are values that might work. Like, they should be recognized by the game. And so if you're looking for an aerial, then you might only have aerial 12. But if you're looking for a Trajan Pro, you might be able to have 13, 14, 15, 16, and so on. And so as Edgar's listing in chat, you can reference these with turbine.ui.lotro.font. One of these. Yeah, internally, these are defined as numbers. These are enumerations, but you can use this in your code. You can say turbine.ui.lotro.font. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. Turbine.ui.lotro.font. And because I'm using the Lua API extension, the LOTRO API extension available through Visual Studio Code's marketplace. It knows about these predefined ones, and so, but we can see under the covers, this is an integer. Arial 12 is 1107296.297. There's no need to type that. That's a waste of time to remember that kind of thing. So if I want to come in here and use book Antiqua bold 14, just out of curiosity, okay, that's 1107296.496. Neat. Sadly, I don't think, Lord Zach, that we have Comic Sans available to us, or that would be delightful. But you have a couple different font families that are available: Verdana, Trojan Pro, and Trajan Pro, and Bold, Book Antiqua Bold, and Book Antiqua. So I guess 3 font families and a few extra ones like Lucida Console. Yeah, so hopefully that makes some sort of sense. So you'll be typing it like this in your plugin. It would be legal to do the 1196 blah blah blah, blah number. It would just why do that to yourself? Don't do that. So if you call your set font, you'd be doing something like that. Awesome. Cool. Great question. Thank you. Farrellton asks, where can I download the beta to translate the German strings? I saw your message, Farrellton, on the forums, and Yes, I don't know if I have too many untranslated strings actually. Let's see. For the minstrel effects, I've been grabbing them from the game, so that's been good. And so I guess it'll just come down to if I have some strings in the configuration options menu, which I haven't done that yet. But like turning the priority anthem on and off. Yeah. So. Oh, nice. Baz says an extra note on the fonts: Times New Roman exists, but is not mentioned in the documentation. Neat. Yeah. There are posts online, especially on the forums, where people kind of trade these, oh, this works, but kind of thing. And as always, if you see it working in another plugin, then kind of by definition, it can work for you as well. I've also is it Egg Arthur? One of you people out there have done some kind of embedding of their own fonts because they needed to handle some issues or make it bigger or smaller in some way that the in-game system wasn't working for them, or just wanted a different font. I'm not sure. And so they have the characters for that font as images that they can go ahead and load up into their plugin. Which is, a little less nice than just giving text to the system, but it must be someone else. Okay. I don't remember who it was who was talking about trying to do that. Oh, it was for the numbers. The numbers for ors, maybe? LOTRO interface. Exogenesis. That's who it was. I believe Exogenesis was trying to solve a problem with numbers showing up on their UI, and I believe the solution that they had was to have their own their own images for digits 0 through 9, which is a manageable thing to do in different fonts and different sizes and whatnot. It's not great if you have to do that for every character. You're inventing a lot of wheels there, reinventing. Okay, so we have a chat receipt function that's going to get called. Is it going to get called? It is. And in here, we're going to, if it's advancement chat, do something with it. And we would like to only do it once in a while. So if we're talking about time, then we want to go ahead and get that game times. And we can use the turbine.engine.getGameTime function. And then we need to know if it's been long enough to care about this message. So we need a variable for that. It would look something like self.advancement channel next handle time, right? The next time that we want to handle this. And we would want to initialize that. So if we're, say, up here in the constructor of the buff window, we could have, oops, I already have a self. Self.advancement channel next handle time equals 0 is a fine default value. But that means we can do something like if current time is greater than or equal to that thing, then do the thing, right? So if we say this thing is going to be 5 seconds in the future, then once current time is 5 seconds or more in the future, then we go ahead and do the parsing. Vaz says, if only we could just import our own fonts. If I had $1 for every security vulnerability that had been introduced in an operating system because of fonts, I would have more than $0. Of all the things that I would love to see for plugins, the ability to import my own fonts is on the list, but it's lower than some other things. So, but I could definitely see. I only have 1K monitors, 1920 by 1080 resolution, and so I don't suffer from some of the same scaling issues that some other players do when they have quote unquote better monitors, or at least bigger resolution monitors. So those 2K and 4K players are dealing with a different set of issues that I am, and I might very much care more about fonts for plugins that way. If I had those particular challenges, I do not have that challenge yet. Okay, so just what did we just do? Yeah, it's been long enough, so we can start parsing chat. So we are going to use a Lua pattern matching. So we're looking for, we don't actually care about any of the details in chat. We're just looking for you have acquired the class trait. So we're just looking for, we have string.find and we have string.match. And find is a yes or no, did you find it? And match is a here are the things that matched. We don't care about that. We're just going to do a string.find. We're going to look at that message. And the other thing was what we were looking at before. Lang chat advancement trait acquired. And so it's going to be, lang dot chat dot advancement trait acquired. So if we find that, then cool. Good job, us. So we want to stop looking for a little while. And so we have this self.advancement chat next handle time. It's a mouthful. I don't know. Naming things is hard. But we want to go ahead and say that is equal to the current time plus 5. Time in LOTRO is a fractional value measured in seconds. And so if we want to do something 5 seconds from now, we can just add 5. Very easy. You can do fractional stuff. So if we want to do stuff in half a second, then we can do 0.5. That's fine as well. I'm not a big fan that time values are fractional values because it means comparing them is inherently slower. Maybe not a lot slower, but floating point number comparison and manipulation is just a slower thing. But it's fine. It's still better than strings. Okay, so we found a thing, and so we want to check for trained anthems. That's the underlying thing that we were doing here. And Iggy, that's what we're at. That's exactly what's up. So we are looking at the Minstrel Buff 2 plugin, just a little covering. And one of the things we're doing, and let's go ahead and demonstrate what we have so far. We're going to go ahead and hop on down off of the roof of Lalia's Market here and come on into the training hall, so where you can get into combat. After the, what was it, 34.2? No, 33.2? I don't know. After the recent update that changed how minstrels work, you can no longer bring out an anthem unless you are in combat. So, a thing that I wanted, because of how the anthem changes have changed, is I wanted the ability to say, these are the anthems, the order in which I care about anthems. So for instance, I want Lesser Anthem 2 before Greater Anthem 2, and I want Lesser Anthem 3 Composure last. The rest of these are not trained right now, but that's okay. They're still in the list. And so when I'm in combat with this training dummy, we can see over here, oh, that's amusing. I'm in a different stance than I thought I was. Well, that's okay. We can see Lesser Anthem 1 Resonance had the priority because I didn't have it active. And now we can see, and I'm going to move this over a little bit, just a little bit further away. The anthem's just sort of floating out here nowhere. I haven't updated the background for it yet. But now we can see the next anthem in the priority queue is Greater Anthem 1. And that makes sense because these have a paired duration. So it's good to get your lessers and greaters out in pairs if you can. So we'll go ahead and do compassion here. And now the plugin knows the next thing on my list was lesser 3. So ideally, unless the Anthem 1 is going to wear off soon, it thinks I should do lesser 3. Cool, that sounds like a great idea. And so this is a build out that has a bunch of anthems, right? Like we have access to lesser and greater 1 and 3 and the anthem of the Freeps, the Free Peoples. And so, wait, or do I? Anthem. Oh, I don't have Anthem of the Free Peoples, or, okay, I redid this the other day because we were playing. But we can see now that Lesser Anthem 1 Resonance is the next one to go because that one will expire in just a few seconds. So we can go ahead and activate that. Bam. And then there is nothing queued up. Iggy says, I never noticed the class trait search box. There are a lot of search boxes in the game, and I really appreciate that. But if you do not find one, you can use the search box in the key in here to find. Is it find? Find items. So you probably have a key binding for find items. Yeah, let me make sure I'm still in combat here. So in this case, it's for me Alt U. Oops. Okay. So if I press Alt U, I don't know. Does that work in this UI as well? It does not. It does items only. That's sad. But it's in case your store window doesn't have. No, get that. In case your store window doesn't have a find button or something, I guess. Let's see. Alt U. Yep. Let's see. Any other find? Find. Toggle instant. Nope, that's it. Okay. Oh, interesting. I could have an Eye of Sauron effect in here. Nice. So that's the Priority Anthem that is working, but in order for it to work, what we want to avoid is a couple of things. The thing that we're working on right now is using the advancement channel to tell whether or not we need to recheck to see if the anthems are trained or not. And so we could immediately call check for trained anthems, but if we're using chat parsing, then we could be in the middle of a big chunk of changes. And so we would like to push off looking for trained anthems until a couple of seconds, maybe 5 seconds. Let everything stabilize first. Because we're getting, you have acquired the class trait, Raise Our Spirits. That happens before you actually get this anthem skill. So if you were to scan anthems at this point, you might not see this anthem even though we're about to have it. So what we really want to do is say, we're going to look at this. And so we can do the same thing. We have an advancement channel next handle time. And we can do a self.update trained anthems next time. I'm not liking how these parse. Next advancement channel handle time. Next update trained anthems time. I like that better. All right, so let's make sure these are defined. Oops. Up here. And we want to go ahead and say that one equals 0, this one equals 0. Great. And make sure we update this usage as well. Okay. Iggy says in chat, you've been watching another streamer who's looking at obscure things in/about the game. Do you know anything obscure about plugins that could be interesting on the iceberg? Well, I don't know. I know of some plugins that are somewhat obscure, or at least to me they seem obscure. So I don't know, this might be more of a usability thing, and not to toot my own horn or anything, but if you did not know, in-game you can change the background of the chat window. You can change the opacity, so it's a little bit easier to read the text, but you can't see behind it, or completely transparent, so you maybe have a hard time reading the text or not. But there wasn't such a thing for the quest area, the quest tracking area. So if we go ahead and track a quest, there's no corresponding opaque background for this. But you can download the opaque quest tracker that I threw together, and it'll give you a little box that you can put behind your quest area. And so I know several people who have maybe not perfect young eyes, or have, for whatever reason, their visual acuity isn't as good. And so when that text is, especially with a background that's very similar color, they just have more trouble reading it than they would like to. So, yes, that's probably not an obscure thing, but it's the first thing that comes to mind of, hey, did you know about, related to plugins? I will think on that. Agartha points out it's a fairly low-level API. You can really shoot yourself in the foot with a plugin. You once put a non-clickable blob over part of your screen and couldn't even unload the plugin via Plugin Manager because it was covered. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, because I run with a fair number of plugins normally, I've disabled most of them for the stream just so I don't get myself into trouble. But there is something in this area of the screen. And so if I click on my character screen, I usually have to click somewhere on the right to bring this, to give this, to bring it forward. And only then can I drag it around because there's something living over here. And, you know, I never care enough about it because I have a simple workaround, but a plugin can easily, accidentally, or maliciously cover parts of the screen. Are there any interesting or obscure API functions that most people wouldn't know about? Most of the functions I know about because they are documented, so I'm not a good person to ask that. Because the API documentation, though it has its flaws, covers most of the things, and a lot of other things have been discovered by people over on the forums. So there's a seminal work by Garen, the Writing LOTRO plugins for noobs, which digs into not only the hows and whys of writing a plugin, but also some of these edge cases and some of the more interesting things. So if you are a plugin person, I highly recommend reading through this. In fact, let me go ahead and just put a link. Let's see, will that post? Yeah. I definitely recommend checking that out if you're at all a plugin or programming person for some of the curiosities that are unearthed. There's also another one, which I think is maybe a little bit more... there was a sort of a LOTRO, Lua gotchas or bugs kind of thing that I thought was really interesting. One of them, which was a surprise to me, I had a... where was this? It must have been in the Minstrel Buff plugin, but I had I was trying to put text on top of a skill thing like this. Where would that have been? I'm not sure, but there was just a layering thing where something to do with the effect. I wonder if that's still active. I should look into that. Is the text over the effect still working? Question mark. What was that term? That was like weeks ago. I don't remember. Let's see. Show warp speech timers? No, it wasn't that. I'll just have to come back to that. Godo in chat says, wow, I just found out Lord of the Rings has a game. Is it good? Yes. If you like MMOs, if you like RPGs, and you like those combined and set into the world of Middle-earth, then I think you would enjoy your experience in Lord of the Rings Online. Yes, we are a little biased. I'm not an SSG employee, the people who put out LOTRO, but I am a streamer here on the official channel, and I do enjoy both playing Lord of the Rings Online and, in the case of this stream, writing plugins for the game. As we are working on today. But if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings, you will probably recognize some of these geographical maps that you have access to, and in the game you have access to large parts of Eriador and Rhovanion and Rohan and Gondor and Mordor, and so these are places you get to explore, and it's kind of a delight as a fan of Lord of the Rings to just walk around the Shire and pick up rabbits or whatever you're going to do in the Shire. Okay, so back to the code. What do we have? So we want to set the next update of trained anthems time to, again, we're going to push this forward. So like current time plus 5. Oops. Go ahead and minimize that. And then the last thing is that, oops, current time. We have an update function that is currently always on because we're just checking every 500 milliseconds. We want that to turn off eventually. So it's only on when we need it to be on. And so we want to make sure that set once updates is true. And then ideally, we're going to be turning that off once it's no longer applicable. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to this time by saying, please call me every update cycle. Godo says, the map looks great. I will try it. Yes, I agree. If you are a hobbit, you specifically start out in the Shire, for instance. And here in the Shire, well, underneath my face, we have Mickle Delving. But in the middle, we have Hobbiton. We can clear all these notes. We have Hobbiton. We have the hill. We have Bag End with the party tree below it. And all sorts of fun places. And then your natural story progression is to move on into Breeland, where you have Breetown with the Prancing Pony, which is nearby to where I am. Okay, so we're setting once updates to true, and the theory is that that's going to kind of turn itself off later. Okay, so that's kind of the beginning of the handle advancement chat. We checked to see, did we get a message saying that we're changing traits? Okay, we did. Then go ahead and stop looking for those for a little while. And in a little while, go ahead and recheck your trained anthems. And enforce that by setting the once updates to true. Okay, that's a thing. Now, the checking for trained anthems was being... let's see, trained anthems. This was a function that was here in Minstrel Buff main, but we're actually going to be doing that in the buff window. So we're going to want to go ahead and move that code over. Let's see. So we have that. So let's go ahead and yank update trained anthems, and that's going to need anthem reset time change. What's up with that? No, that's fine. Okay, so we have update trade anthems. Awesome. Anthem reset time change. When is that getting called, and why is it here? What did my notes say about this? I had some ideas. I'm not sure. Anthem reset time changed is getting called based off of the reset time change of an anthem. Yeah. And then, yeah, it doesn't really seem related. Let's go ahead and yoink update trained anthems. Where else is this getting called? We're doing it in the Minstrel stance change, and we can see we had it to do. Move this to the advancement chat parsing. Also, delay calling this until 5 seconds after we see a trait change. We're doing both of those things awesome. So, we want this update. It's time to update the trained anthems. It's going to be in here somewhere, which means we need that update trained anthems easily available. Where else was it being used? We did it once at the start of all this, so we can move that on in to buff windows start function. There we go. So much stuff. it'll be somewhere like that. Okay, and then we just have the function itself. And that we can go ahead and yoink on as well. Where do we want that? Probably at the bottom. Let's just paste it in here. Okay. So let's just glance through here. We have a chat here. Let's go ahead and maybe comment that out for right now. We'll see if we need that. We still have that being minstrel buff main. We want to go ahead and fix that reference. Nope. Great. If we ever had that right line, yeah, we'll want that. Great question from Iggy, already answered by Ferrothan, but Iggy said, how do you do the cooldown thing on the skill in the plugin? Does it display the cooldown wheel thing by default, or did you add it in? This is a UI component provided by the game. It is a skill something something. A quick slot. And so because I'm using the game to show the skill in the quick slot, and it's clickable, you can click on it to activate it, or you could if I was in combat. And so because the game knows in this quick slot there is a skill, it can tie its state in with the underlying skill. So you can click it to use the skill, its UI will update based off of cooldown. And that's true. Remember that with anthems, they have a shared cooldown. So even if I don't use that, if I use the Lesser Anthem 3 Composure, we still get that shared cooldown affecting all anthems. And so the cooldown sweep happens automatically because I'm doing that. If I was just showing an image of it, then we wouldn't get all that extra stuff for free. Great question. Fairthin, are you able to delete some of the old code in the future? Does your code rely on it too much? I'm always thinking about the performance measurement at the beginning, even if it has nothing to do with the size of a plugin. There's definitely some cleanup I want to do, but there's a lot of stuff in here that does the job that it's trying to do. So there's some weirdness in here, like we have two different places where strings are localized. It might be nice to have it in one file. I don't know. All the minstrel effect files, but also the strings files. In retrospect, maybe they should have been unified. The way buff window has its own window component is weird. Stuff like that. He says, is it possible to have gear update itself in the same way? A while ago, I couldn't work out how to have gear in a plugin slot update stuff like durability by itself. I haven't tried to put other stuff into a quick slot. But if we look at shortcut type, we can see that the game should know about alias, hobbies, items, pet, skill, or undefined. So it seems like the way a quick slot work is you have a shortcut to a thing that you put into the quick slot. So if the shortcut is to an item, maybe they would link up. I know items have a complication where it's sort of here's the underlying item in the game, and here's the specific ID of the item of that you have, and there's a complication there that I'm not sure how that works. So like you can arbitrarily refer to an item, but would that share the same cooldown as the item that you have? Maybe. But we're well outside my experience there. I am trying to remember what other plugins work actively with items that we could crib from. Titan Bar? Titan Bar definitely has a way to look at the durability of things, but like, is there a plugin that has an item in its UI such that you can hover over it and interact with it? And I don't know. I'll think about that. Okay, so we have a buff window. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, here we go. In here, we don't need to refer to buff window. That was a main thing, so we didn't need that anymore. Grab possibly updated information. It's not for buff window, it's for us, so we can update that comment. And then self dot buff window? No, that's just self. Okay, so that allows us to bring the update trained anthems over. And that's neat. Okay. Let's go ahead and do a quick sanity check by unloading the plugin, reloading it. Oh, we do have a syntax error. So let's go ahead and come on in here. Soliloquy tracker window, 76. Enable disable chat monitoring is trying to look at MB main, and that didn't work. MB main is spelled like this. But if the MB main itself, the construction of that, is causing the construction of the Soliloquy tracker window, and the Soliloquy tracker window itself is trying to call this in, well, where? Yes, in the constructor, then this might not be fully constructed by the time we get there, and that would be a bummer. Have to think about that. I mean, the obviously easiest way to deal with it is just say if MB main, then do that. It doesn't really solve the underlying problem, which is to say, what should that default to? But it's fine for right now. We'll make a note. Break the cycle between minstrel buff main and soliloquy tracker window ctors. Okay, we have a little note for ourselves to come back to that later. He points out, yeah, type bar doesn't really get real durability values. It uses the limited ability provided by the API. Yes, that's a fair point. Yeah, I'm trying to remember other plugins that might be more item focused, and I'm not thinking one other than like inventory plugins, which is actually a good point. Like if you load up an inventory plugin like Prime, so if we open up the plugin compendium, third-party utility that you can use to manage your plugins, and come on over to Prime plugin. Specifically, I'm thinking of Prime bags, and we go ahead and add that in. It's going to download it, it's extracting it, and we're done. Then we can just refresh and load on up. So this is the normal one sort of unified bag that you can do just natively in the game. But if we go ahead and load up Prime bags, then it's going to serve as a replacement. So we're going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. And so kind of by definition, Prime bags must be showing items because it is, by definition, an inventory. All right. What else do we have? We have a couple of buttons without hoverovers. We have setup. Fascinating. Yeah. It has to update those items. I'm not sure, but if I go ahead and use Bjorn's honey cake, for instance, we can see that we have cooldowns for all of those. Agatha, you think those are quick slots? Sure, but if a plugin wants to show an item including cooldown effects and hover over with durability, then I think that's what you'd have to do. I think you'd have a quick slot with a shortcut of an item and slap that into your plugin. I don't know if that fits what you had in mind, Iggy, but yeah, if you have a quick slot with a shortcut of type item, it is possible to map internal cooldowns and whatnot, just like that. And just like that, my Bjorn Honeycake is ready to go. I wonder if you can do consume consumables on a training dummy. You cannot do that in combat. Irony. I think I'm the only player character in here. Okay. No, that's okay. Yeah. Oh, I'm no longer in combat. Nope, you cannot do it on a training dummy. Yeah. So I use a version of Primeback that I've modified, and so I need to fix that, and so I can actually get updates. But I feel like this button is meant to stack light things together, maybe, and I think this one is supposed to make you nude, and I don't really want to do either of those right now. So I'm going to go ahead and unload that. Okay. Neat. Yeah. So I don't have a firm grasp on how one does quick slots with shortcuts that are items, but I think it must be possible. Okay. Neat. Okay. So, one thing I remember is that update train anthems uses get active skill, and get active skill is defined in main. Oh, I see. Anthem reset time uses it as well. I guess it's fine to leave it there. Okay. Tunnel says, really? A frying pan as a weapon? That's so cool. Absolutely. I find it a very appropriate weapon for a hobbit. Channeling my inner Sam here. You can get this specific one. It is a heavy cast iron frying pan available from the Matham Society, I believe. So if you are have a high enough reputation with the Matham Society, you can come on over to Western Shire to Mickle Delving and talk to the Matham Society and get yourself a frying pan. If you're lucky enough to be a class like a hunter, then you can equip it as both of your two-hand weapons, I believe. Good point, Iggy. Yes, Iggy. This is only a cosmetic item right now, but I believe in my inventory I have the original. Let's see. Pan. Nope, I don't. That's wild. Did I put it in my shared inventory? Pan. All right, we're off to Mickle Delving.
Unless your storage alt has it.
Yeah, I was just playing over on Crick Hollow, and there I did save the frying pan. I'm not sure. I mean, it seems like I would have. Seems like a good idea. And yet, I don't see it. That's okay. I want to say you get it from inside. And then, yo. Heavy cast iron frying pan. It is equipable for 5 DPS, which, fair enough. I feel like it should be more. It's heavy. That should be at least 10 DPS. So if you're at least ally standing with the Matham Society, pick this up. You can use it as a weapon. It's better to just use it as a cosmetic. Let's see. You can also get a butter knife. I mean, that would be an adorable item for a champion to wield or something. Like, you just run around stabbing things with this. What else do we have? Oh, the pitchfork. Yeah, there's some good stuff here, especially if you're a fan. Oh, hey, I don't have the prize sheet yet. Oh, the shovel. Yes, we have Kinmei who likes running around with shovels. And they're Bjorning, so they get to dual wield shovels. It's very good. All right. Cool. Excellent question. Frying pan. Okay, so we have. Just a few more things to do in the buff window, I think, and we'll be done. So in the update function, we're doing a couple of things. So what we would like to do is not go every half a second. So this is not great here. But if we assume this gets deleted, and assume. So let's start plotting out how we actually want update to work. So this can be for a couple reasons, right? Update can be requested for several reasons. So we the trained anthems, right? We need to update trained anthems. So if something, then end. And then we can put the update trained anthems in there. Not sure what that's going to look like yet, but that's okay. And then the priority itself, the thing that this is doing. We need to recalculate anthem priority. And so that, what do we have? We want to force anthem priority calculations if we're going to be tracking when the next anthem will hit sort of the threshold. And so only force an anthem priority calculation when the next anthem effect drops below the anthem cooldown. Sure, why not? So if something, then end. And in here is where we're going to do this recalculate anthem priority. So we're not quite ready for this yet, but that'll be the next thing. And then, like we said before, we would prefer not to be doing things in the update function because you can be called 50 or 100 times a second depending on how good your computer is. So if we aren't doing either of these, I'll just say any of these, then stop updates. And then we can come on in and say if something, then that'll be self.window set wants updates to false. Jarvis in chat says, question about an existing plugin. I just started using Alt Inventory by Garen. Excellent plugin. It doesn't show items in carryalls. Other plans? Or is there a way to tweak that so it will? So, carryalls are a pretty recent introduction, as Little Redhead has said in chat. They post-date the API in general. And there is not currently a lot of active development on the LOTRO API, and that's the way that plugins get to talk to the game about, hey, what's going on with the game. So plugins can know that there is a carryall, but they can't currently peek inside a carryall to know what's in there. Now, that can be really frustrating, especially if, like me, you have more than one carryall. So, for instance, I have more than one carryall. And so what I do is I will mentally map out what is where. And so, for instance, in my shared storage, I go ahead and Iggy says the API doesn't even have support for Bjornings or Brawlers. They haven't. They are added to enumeration, so you can tell if a class is Bjorning or Brawler. If I have task carryalls, I just have I have a bucket for task. This is where I keep my task items that don't fit into carryalls, but also the task carryalls themselves. I also have a bucket for medal / bonus crit items, like these chunks of bright brimstone that increase your critical chance. And so these are where I keep my 3 crafting carryalls. One is for above Supreme, one of them is Apprentice to Supreme, and one of them is all of the critical items. And so that's the solution I use to kind of know what's in what carryall. So Affadil, this character is my metalworker / tailor. That's the M/T. And so we have the large crafting carryall. That's just the the leathers and the other things associated with tailoring that aren't a part of metal and crit. But I also have some essence tracer carryalls as well for legacy items and essences. And Schildwacht is my jeweler / cook. So these 4 are all cooking or jewelry related. And I happen to know that the jewels are on the end, so maybe they're this one. Nope, that was the wrong one. So it's on the other end. Don't clear my search. So it's over here. So I come in and cool, there's all my gems. So that's my solution. Oh, Arda is my scholar / weaponsmith. Cool. These must be my crafting for scholars, and it's probably dye components in one and everything else in the other, that kind of thing. And so if you, like me, have way too many carryalls, this is a solution to it. Group like things together, store them with the characters that they kind of most go with. Like my leathers go with my tailor, and therefore the crafting carryall that contains them is probably that one. Cool. Look at all those leathers and hides. Awesome. Stop clearing my search. And so same thing, like I have some that aren't really in use because this is Treebeard and there was a big sale on carryalls at some point, and so I stocked up on carryalls knowing that I would want them possibly before the next time they come on sale. And so I have a large die carryall. That's cool. I keep forgetting I have that, but I have some other ones as well. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it, right? Like the ones that are in active use go into the shared storage bucket that is closest to their use, and then I just sort of remember. And it gets harder when I bit between different servers because my setup on Evernight is just a little bit different than my setup here, and so it really benefits if you basically play on a single server. then it's a lot easier for me to kind of use those hints as okay, that's exactly what's in there. Now, of course, you can try to set up identically on each server, but yeah, it takes time to synchronize, and yeah, that may or may not be useful. Okay, so Iggy, a couple points. The API, you say, doesn't have support for Bjornings or Brawlers. Looks like you can't get class-specific things like the Bjorning power thing or the Brawler focus thing. That I don't know about. I feel like I would look at plugins that do just that, like Mini Raid, or there was a really smooth-looking plugin recently that's a replacement for character and enemy stuff. And I don't remember what it was, but it looked really smooth. And so I would see, what do you do about Bjornings and Brawlers? I would expect to have some minimal access to those things, even if it's not named the right thing. Like maybe it's still named Morale, or still named Power, but you get Rage or whatever instead. This is an excellent organization. Thank you. Iggy, can you rename carryalls? No, and SSG definitely knows that is a requested feature. It comes up a lot when they do streams and on forums and whatnot. So that's definitely a thing that is on a board somewhere of player-desired changes. But there's been no announcement of a specific schedule for that. And that's why I go ahead and do the system that I do is... Nope, that's not going to work. when carryalls are sorted, so when you hit the sort button in your inventory or when they are put into storage, they are sorted according to some internal ID, possibly just the item ID. So they are always in the same order. So I know for Schildvat, this is always gems. This one is always stuff I've bought from a vendor. This is stuff I've made, and this is stuff I've farmed, right? Like, or whatever the actual order is. It's been a while since I've done some farming. But they're always in that order when they're in storage. So that's why I go ahead and name the buckets that they're in, and then just if there's more than one carryall in a bucket, I just know what they are. My medals always start with the biggest medal, and then the lower level medals, and then the crit stuff. So while these aren't named, or they aren't renamed, they are functionally, they are distinguishable by me because I know what order they show up in. They always show up in the same order. And so, yeah, and sometimes it doesn't matter. Like my task carryalls, the stuff in them is not ordered in any specific way. So I will usually just pull them all out, press collect all, and put them all back in, and that's it. Like for me, it doesn't matter what order or what names are in them. But for these other ones, I would very much like to have names, and my temporary solution, my solution for as long as it takes them to add in a renaming, is to go ahead. Yeah, Lord Zach, I do have a lot of carryalls. There was some sort of discount, like they were half off or something one week, 3/4 off. There was some deep discount on them, and I was like, well, I'm gonna want them eventually. Yeah, so because they always show up in the same order in storage, I am able then to assign a purpose to them mentally. And sometimes I even have a screenshot that's like, these are what's in here. And since the order never changes, I can use that. Lord Zach says sometimes they aren't even for sale at all. Exactly. So since I didn't need them at the time on Treebeard, but I knew I would want them, and they were on sale, it seemed sensible to stock up, since I was in the nice position of being able to do that. So yeah, that's my. It's not as good as being able to rename carryalls, but it does allow me to look at all this and to know to a pretty good precision what is in a specific carryall. Teresa, you missed that sale. I suspect they will be for sale again in the future someday, and there may even be a sale, a discounted price on them. I believe the last time was around Yule, and so that may be the case again. They may pick a big festival time period where they'll do like monthly sale or weekly sales all month, that kind of thing. And sometimes we luck out and it's a carryall, and sometimes we don't. So that's why I was like, oh, I haven't seen it for a while. It's the first time they're available on Treebeard. Bye, 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 bye. Letterhead says, some people buy clothes, cars, jewelry, we buy carryalls. Yeah. Being able to live without a car definitely frees up some of the budget for other things. Lord Zach, give me my infinite carryall bag. I would take a carryall bag that holds other carryall bags. I think that's a reasonable request, right? I think most people would underutilize that. Okay, so we have some basic thoughts of what we want to do here. So we want to do stuff. D&D bag of holding. These really do function, Teresa, like a bag of holding. You wouldn't want to put one inside another, and they hold a ridiculous amount. And also, time doesn't seem to pass when you're inside the bags. Like if we look at my farming carryall, there are 5,000 blueberries in there, and they've been in there for a while, and they're still great. They're as fresh as the day I planted them, well, harvested them. And my taters, and my mushrooms, and my oats, and my carrots. All of these, time does not seem to pass in them, which is very handy. Yeah, I will avoid getting dragged into, I think, a discussion about NFTs, but I'm not a fan. Okay, cool. So what do we have? We have an update function where we've kind of spec'd out what we need. So for the training anthem things, we have a time We need the current time. We are getting the current time, so that's good. So we can do the same basic comparison of if current. Well, we're using what's the name of that variable? Let's pop on up here. The next next update trained anthems time. So we have this, and what we want to write is if current time is greater or equal to that. But what we're doing is we're using 0 as a sort of a default value of we're not doing this thing. So we want to make sure we check for if self dot next update trained anthems time is not equal to 0 and the current time is bigger than it. Then, well, we did the thing. We update the trained anthem, so we can reset this thing. Self dot next update trained anthems time equals 0 and update trained anthems. So we're not ready to do the recalculating the anthems priority thing, but we can kind of spec out what this will look like. Let's pop on up here a sec and pretend like we are going to have the final one of these, which is the next anthem below cooldown time. We'll call it. Naming things is hard, but why not? So if we come back here to the update function, we have that same idea, right? We have if we have the same type of variable, so self dot, oh, we already have a self dot, self dot next anthem below cooldown time is not 0, and current time is greater than or equal to self dot next anthem below time, then we can do the thing. And the first thing we'll do is set that same variable. Why am I auto-indenting? That's weird. We're going to set that to 0, and then we're going to do the thing. We already had a function up here, self-recalculate anthem priority. Awesome. So we don't have this next anthem below cooldown time in use yet, but that's sort of the future that we're looking for. Lord Zach. Yeah, that is a lot of berries. I could open a blueberry muffin shop, but this character is not a cook. What is if tilde tilde tilde? So that's my way of saying I need to write something here. I don't know what it is yet, and I do not want the plugin to run if I forget to remove it. This is a syntax error. In fact, if we come on in here and load up the plugin manager, unload, reload, we're going to get an unexpected symbol near tilde on line 344. That's perfect. So that's my way of just a quick little placeholder that says this needs to be replaced and the code is not good without it. So that's what the tilde is for. And that's just my little convention. Obviously, you can do whatever you like. But Lua is kind of permissive. So if I said this needs to be fixed, right? If I said this needs to be fixed and then tried to load the plugin loads, right? That is just a previously unreferenced variable with a default value of, I don't know, 0 or 0. So this code won't run, so that part's good, but it doesn't remind me that it needs to be fixed. Whereas some syntax error like tilde 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 is good. It's funny. I had a Japanese teacher once, and when she was writing explanations, grammatical explanations, she would kind of do the same thing. It's possible I picked it up from her, where she would be, basically scribbling, like there's a noun here, there's a verb here, whatever. And so she would say nani nani nani, or nani being the Japanese for what, right? So nani nani nani, and she would just be scribbling these little tilde-like symbols just as placeholders, right? Like, doesn't matter what's here, we need to get to further in the sentence. So nani 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 wakarimasen, or whatever. And so same thing, right? It just, yeah. No. I mean, it rolls off the tongue very nicely. Okay, so, but, yeah, if we're not doing any of these, so if we have the convention that if these things are equal to 0, then they are not active. So we can do a check for them. The same kind of check that we're already doing, except this time we do care if they're 0. So if next update trend equals 0 and this one equals 0, then we'll wait for that syntax to be highlighted. There we go. So that's the basic idea, is if these are both equal to 0, then we do not have a thing that we are looking for. And so we can safely turn the wanting updates off because we're not checking for anything. And anytime where one of these is turned on, next anthem will have cooldown time. We'll get to that. But the next update trained anthem time, when that gets turned on, we set once updates to true. And so kind of by definition, if we aren't looking for that anymore, update, let's get back here. Once we're not looking for that anymore, we do not need update to be called until we are looking for that, in which case we can turn updates back on. So this is a way we can avoid having to look at updates all the time. Now we were already doing a little filtering by saying, hey, we're only going to do this once every second. Once every second, but sometimes you don't need to be called for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 40 seconds. Okay. Anything else that needs to come into play yet? I would say no. Let's go ahead and take a look at where we are in... Oh. I was trying to figure out why my clock wasn't agreeing with my sense of time, and it's because, of course, we had daylight saving time here in Europe, and you all have not yet. Hey, he hopes I do not make pies with the blueberries. Imagine all the people who have to go around taking them back. Well, my pies are always perfect. I don't know what you're talking about. I see the redhead tried to do an extra life command and it didn't come through on mine.
It didn't work.
Worked for me. So just a reminder that we are doing fundraising for Extra Life, which raises money for to help with children's hospitals. The Standing Stone Games team has so far raised 19,896 money units out of the 20,000 it is seeking to raise. Maybe that number will go up if we're very successful. So if you have a desire to help out with children's hospitals and have some spare cash, you too could be a part of that by donating. I'm not actually doing the drive myself, but you can support Little Redhead, who was on just before me. You can support her drive at that link right there, extra-life.org/participant/Little Redhead, LILREDHEAD. Obviously, we aren't. We're not interested in you donating if you do not have money to spare. But if you do have money to spare and enjoy donating for charitable purposes, this is one of them. Okay. Oh, we had a note start. We had a note to make sure to update the anthems at the end of start. We did that. Awesome. Okay. Then we should go ahead and commit this. So we have just some to-do file changes. No problems there. In the buff window, we're not going to bother with the next. We can go ahead. All right. Buff window pays attention to the advancement chat. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and stage this. Update trained anthems, got it. Changes to the update function. That's all great. That update trained anthems function we hoisted on in here. And we have the chat received and handle advancement tabs. Love it. In the main function, we went ahead and removed that update trained anthems. We need to set the buff window chats equals true. Let's go ahead and do that real fast. So MB main. Yeah, that's a thing that we could do. Okay. Just thinking. MB main, and that is going to be buff window once chats equals true. To do, base this off of settings for Priority Anthem use. Okay, so we do want to go ahead and bring that in. We have these variables. We've removed the update. We removed this other, and we have the initialized chat monitoring, and we call it. Awesome. And in the soliloquy tracker window. So this is an answer for why the minstrel buff window and the main and the buff window both separate out their constructor from their start function. It is a way of breaking a cyclical dependency where the minstrel buff main refers to the buff window one refers to minstrel buff main, and they kind of grovel into each other's internals, and is an example of why you don't do that. But breaking things out into separate start functions, so you do the constructor and then you have a constructed object, and then you do the start function, and it kind of does the second half of the construction, does allow you to bypass these things. Okay, so we'll go ahead and stage that dependency breakage right there anyway, and we'll come back to that. Okay, awesome. Oh, cool. I see in chat that Little Redhead is talking about Lecture Life stream day on Friday, where there'll be giveaways for in-game items all day. Must be present to win kind of things. But they'll do drawings every 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever, maybe more often. As Little Redhead points out, the drawings are for anyone, although the codes you get will only be useful in LOTRO, so ideally you're a LOTRO player or have a LOTRO playing friend. When you do get a code from those, you'll pop open the LOTRO store with the LOTRO store button. You'll go to redeem code, and you'll just copy paste that code in. Don't try to type it in. It's long, it's gibberish. Copy paste it, and then hit apply. So for instance, this week's quest is Fall Immune 5. This week's code. So I can copy paste Fall Immune 5 on in here. I can hit apply, and zoop, I get the thing. And that's exactly what it'll be like if you win during a stream of one of those giveaways. Unless it's a physical item, which there might be one or two of those. But if it is a digital item, it'll be a code like that. Punch it in, get the thing, done. It says almost 20k LOTRO points. Wow. Yeah, well, first, as a subscriber, which I am because I am lucky enough to have the money to be a subscriber, and I do want them to keep making the game, so I give them money in the hopes that they'll do that. So I think I get like 500 each month just rolling on in, and I don't spend it very often. And as a person who really likes doing deeds, I do a lot of deeds. If you also like doing deeds, I have also made a plugin called Deed Tracker. And Deed Tracker will tell you how many LOTRO points you can get from doing deeds. Although right now it doesn't have any of my saved data, so it thinks I have no deeds completed. And if that's the case, it thinks there's 300 LOTRO points to be had in Breland, and 155 in the Shire, and 185 in Eredlun. So you can accumulate these LOTRO points in-game just by running through the content, if you so desire. I haven't done the math recently, but yeah, if we just do a really quick comparison, like 300, 155, 185, 180, 160, 230, 185, and Abendim, yep, and Angmar. Oh, and Forakel. So if you just do the Arabian is part of that too. The pre-Mines of Moria content, then you're looking at 2,155 LOTRO points per character that you do it on. So, if you're a completionist, as I am, you can accumulate these. And that's nothing, that doesn't include the LOTRO points from Reputation. So if you go get yourself kindred with the Council of the North, that's going to get you an extra 50 LOTRO points, and 50 for each faction that you get kindred with in Eriador. So it adds on to it. Okay, awesome. Yeah, as he also says in chat, Reputation LOTRO points do make up for a lot. Like, there's, I don't know, how many factions in the World Renowned? Let's see. I don't have it yet, right? Oh, Reputation. World Renowned. So there's 11 factions in World Renowned. So that's kind of definition only 550 LOTRO points when you complete that. Plus it gives you another 50. So it's really 600 LOTRO points minimum, plus all the other ones you had to accomplish in order to get this. And you get a cool Steed of Eriador. Lord Zach says, SSG, adding quest/deed restrictions on reputation items to prevent easy LP curses. So they did do such a thing. But for me, I actually liked that change because from a lore perspective, from an in-game immersion perspective, it did not make sense for me, a lowly hobbit, to stroll into Forachel and run up to the people who I've never seen before. I've never been to Forachel. I just discovered a stable master, and I'm kindred with them. Right? Like, this, from a gameplay story immersion perspective, made no sense. So to say you have to at least interact with these people on a minimal level in order to do the thing, in order to be able to consume these items, for me that seemed like, yes, it is an inhibition for you to just consume these reputation items. But for me, there was a deeper underlying story and immersion reason why this made sense. So that was, I wouldn't say it was a welcome change, but it was an understandable change, and for me, it was I had no real issue with it. The quests or the gating that you have to complete in order to do these things, generally at the levels that I play, which is 65 and under on Treebeard, they're just not that difficult to do. Like, yeah, I have to walk myself to Forachel and go up into the hills and find the bird and whatever, but if I've never done that, why do they like me so much, right? So, anyway, I do not fall in line behind every change that SSG makes, but I'm fine with that one. But I do have that problem because I have a lot of alts on Treebeard, and I get a lot of those reputation items from Moria, like a lot, like whole 20 or 30 stacks of them because they just drop so easily, and I shove them off to an alt, and then I have to take that alt off to the gates of Holland and run them on in and do those 2 quests, and then okay, now we can consume all the things. Learn Zach, I just wish if I right-clicked the item, it did an error and gave me a quest to go talk to the starting NPC instead of looking it up in the wiki. There is a bit of undiscoverability. That is true. Although, I think they're looking at it from the perspective of people don't necessarily do every quest, but they've probably done kind of the basic, you've just gotten here quest in a region. At least once. Many people. And so for those people, they've probably seen the gated quest at least once, possibly multiple times on multiple alts over the years. And for those people who haven't, there is a sense of, there's an exploration component to it, right? You can definitely take it and say, oh, I've heard rumors that I must do this thing before I can consume this item. I guess I'll start looking for this. So there, for those who want it, there's an extra level of exploration of I need to do a special thing in order for these people to like me enough to be able to do this thing. And so if you want to treat it as its own exploration deed, almost, you could do that. You could just walk around to various NPCs and like, do you have the thing that I need to do? Do you have it? Obviously the wiki is always there for people who are like, no, that's not my playstyle. I just want to get the thing and be done with it. But if you're interested in that more of an immersion thing, like, the legends tell of a special thing that the four hells need, or whatever, the Lossoth. Yeah, the four Kellians. There we go. Those people. All right, let's see if we can plow through this thing where we do not need to call the update function all the time. In fact, it would have looked like that. Okay, so we want to delete this thing. We want to call it only when we need to and not all of the time. And so we had a function, recalculate anthem priority. And so in that function, if we can kind of say, barring everything else, this is a time that we need to redo this recalculation. It might happen before then, but if nothing else changes, let's go ahead and specifically the thing we're looking at is the case where, oh, I need to actually activate my Minstrel buff plugin. Amusing. Okay, so, I need to change stances. Actually, do I? Oh, I don't have good anthems on here. Okay, that's fine. I had a build out where my anthems were like lasting a minute and a half or something. It was a problem. Darts says, just download LOTRO for the first time. Congratulations, welcome, and all that. Do you know what the free content code is? Well, there was a free content code that was good through the end of October. It was Free Quests 2022. I believe it no longer works at this time. That being said, there's a lot of content in Lord of the Rings Online that is free. You'll be able to travel along the story of the Fellowship well into Gondor, I think. And they have the people at SSG, which I do not work for, but the people at SSG have released a code like that to kind of unlock older content across the board. They did that in 2020 and 2021, and now they've done 2022. So they may do that again in the future. Looks like Garth says someone on Discord tried it an hour ago, said it was invalid. Okay, well, we knew it was probably going to turn off. Aiki says, not into Gondor, up to Gondor. Great, thank you. So up to 95, level 95, end of Rohan. I think. Thanks for jumping in there with that. So yeah, you can do a lot of stuff in the game, and if you're a completionist like me, you could very well take a year to really explore the story and all the side quests and whatnot before you start bumping up into content. But if you do enjoy the game, by the time you get to a point where the free stuff runs out, you will have acquired a lot of the in-game currency, LOTRO points, which if you're not familiar with them, you can get from deeds. For instance, when I complete World Renowned by finishing off Algreg Men of Enedvaith, almost there, middle of Ally, I'm going to get another 50 LOTRO points. And so content that oftentimes can be bought in the LOTRO store for in-game currency, as well as with real-world money. And so you might be able to buy a quest pack for 300 or LOTRO points or something. Cool. That's not nothing, but it is very accomplishable in gameplay. For those people who maybe have a little less real world money, disposable money, but maybe have a little bit more time that they can spend in game to compensate. All right, he says up to 95 is totally free, and even past there's earnable LP. Yep. Egarther comments, not lower level stuff that was added later, like Wildwood, Angle, or Yonder Shire, and maybe further adventure. So yeah, there's some content that you'll run into that's not available, and a lot of that might be unlocked with a code that might come next year. Lord Zach says, congrats on so many episodes. Yeah, it's been well over a year at this point. We are taking off a couple of weeks in November for the Thanksgiving holidays. We're going to go visit family and whatnot, and not take the streaming rig with. That says you'll wait until next year. Well, totally fine, but like we said, there's a lot of stuff you can do in-game without any sort of a free content code, if you so desire. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff freely available. And even with that code, they do not unlock all the latest stuff. There's usually, everything that came out up to maybe 2 years ago. Kind of an aspect to it. As Little Redhead says, LOTRO is a very large world, so you're not going to feel like you are bumping into the paid content barrier anytime soon. And if you, like some of us, have a habit of creating alts, where you kind of restart your progress at level 1 and you start with a different class race combination, it takes even longer. Okay. Yes, so back to the code. We're in recalculate anthem priority. We had just started this idea with this shortest remaining time variable. And we can start playing with that. So, in this area, is Anthem trained? We can start paying attention to how much time is left on that. So we might come in and say first of all, if it's not expired, because that's the case we're looking at is, I got so tied up, caught up talking about other things. So we're looking for the case where this anthem itself, the duration drops below how much time your anthem cooldown takes. So we have a duration of 1 minute here. So what we want to see is that when this thing gets to 25 seconds left, it's now the priority. It was the priority, and we put it out, and we need it to become the priority again. We're going to see that happen right now because we still have that update every half a second or 1 second thing. But right now, the new priority is Greater Anthem Compassion until now. Or it should be. Well, we're in the middle of writing that code. But now, because that's the greater for this. Sorry. Because the greater will renew the time, and it's better to have both. That's the thing. Okay, so now when this gets down to 25 seconds, Anthem 1 lesser should be the new priority over Anthem 3, the lesser Anthem 3. And I'm really used to the neighborhood dummies where you stay in combat way longer. It's kind of nice to be able to pop out of combat at will. Normally I have to run into a house to make it go. Okay, so we just hit 25 seconds. Obviously, we still need to deal with this logic, but that's what's going on. So we need the thing that we're looking at to not be expired, otherwise it doesn't matter. And we have a shortest remaining time. So we're starting at the Anthem cooldown. So what do we need? If it's not expired and then so we have that remaining time. If the remaining time for this anthem is less than the shortest remaining time, then do stuff. And then okay, so we have that, and then there's the question of, is this default value good? In fact, does the default value make sense? We might want to know whether or not we've actually set a value here, because we'd like to use one of the real cooldowns if appropriate. So, like, shortest remaining time, I don't know, set equals false. And then we can say, neat, I'm being dinged to say the Extra Life fundraising is 104 money short of 20,000 American dollars. That's pretty cool. So if anyone wants to donate $104 and just rocket us up to 20,000, you do you. Okay, so we have if the remaining time is less than the shortest remaining time, or if the shortest remaining time is not set. I think either of those would be fine. Then we're going to go ahead and set that value. So what would that look like to set that value? Well, first of all, we need to set shortest remaining time set equals true. We can't forget that, otherwise this logic won't work. And then shortest remaining time, we're going to set that equal to the remaining time. Excuse me. And that's kind of it for this. For each anthem that is trained and is not expired, we're going to find the one with the lowest amount of remaining time. And then we need to do some additional logic, because the logic that we're talking about to check back in only counts if the remaining time is more than that anthem cooldown. So it's kind of here, right? Here where we started typing this. So if the shortest remaining time, well, we were going to say if this minus that is like greater than 0, but I think it'll be easier to just write if shortest remaining time is greater than self.anthem.cooldown. There we go. Then we can do this. So what are we doing? We should recheck the priority queue when stuff and things. When the shortest anthem cross, and I'm just saying that for least remaining time. Shortest anthem crosses the cooldown threshold. Something like that. And then in here, what do we have? We already had sort of a placeholder variable. And that was the next anthem below cooldown time. So now's when we can go ahead and make use of that. Yes, as Little Redhead points out in chat, we're very amused at the idea of this niche plugin stream being the stream at which we cross the 20,000 mark for charity racing. It's totally fine if it's not, but it would be an extra level of amusement given the niche nature of this stream. Okay, so what do we have in here? We have that self dot next anthem below cooldown time equals. We have that remaining time, and we have the current time somewhere. Do we have current time? We have current time. Okay. So we can just say it's equal to shortest remaining time plus current time. Or I guess I like to think of current time being added first. Okay, and then, but we don't want it when it's, we don't want it when it actually cools down. We want it when it, the excess time over the anthem cooldown seconds. So we do want to remove anthem cooldown seconds from that. And then we have, current time plus the amount of excess we have in this anthem. And then we've set this, so we do need to remember. And in fact, this is why there should be a setter for this. There should be a setter function, so we always remember to call self set once updates true instead of just counting on ourselves to do it. That's okay. Oh, right, we have that nested window, don't we? So that's the general idea. Is we're going to go ahead and if any of the anthems has a remaining amount of time, or the shortest remaining anthem has an amount of time over the anthem cooldown, we want to go ahead and recalculate once we've crossed that threshold, if we haven't done it since then. I guess the real question is, where do we reset this? We don't. We probably should. Next anthem below cooldown, we should probably set that to nothing. Somewhere. Let's set it here. Because if it turns out none of them are, and we had an old calculation, like something else has happened, we've done a recalculation, we don't need to do another recalculation unless we do need to do one. Okay, I feel good about that. The self one updates is interesting. Well, no, it'll turn itself off if the other one doesn't need it. We're fine. It's good. It's good. The real question is, does it work? So, let's get ourselves into combat here. We'll go ahead and activate. And we'll get our three ballads here while we're thinking about it. Lord Zach asks for the 500 gold. That's Little Redhead. Yes. And you know, I'm supporting her in it, but you know, when she makes it, it's all on her. Right? She gets the credit. And the SSG team goal, you can see below that. It's all underneath the plugin manager. I'll just move that aside. Yeah, so the SSG has a current goal of raising $20,000 for children's hospitals, and is at 19,896. That's awesome, and that's among all the people who are on the SSG team. So Cordovan and Druid's Fire and Little Redhead and all of them. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to see this Priority Anthem in a few seconds get replaced because this one's going to expire, yes, too soon. And so we need to do Lesser Anthem 1 first, because if we don't, the amount of time the Anthem cooldown takes, 25 seconds, means this will expire before we get to the next one. I guess I should actually do it. So yes, right now we have a 1 minute cooldown on Anthem on the Anthem effect. It'll be here for 1 minute, and a 25-second cooldown on launching Anthems. Although, I believe with the Before the Shadow release, they're going to increase the default. They're doing something about Anthem times. I think the default Anthem time is going up to 45 seconds instead of, no, 30 seconds? Do I have an Anthem expending thing? Yes, okay. So I have a legacy that extends the anthems by 30 seconds. So instead of 30 seconds, we have 1 minute here. But with that, all right, we're going to want to go ahead and reactivate the Lesser Anthem here. With the update for Before the Shadow, I believe we're going to advance up to a default 45 seconds, pushable to a minute 15 with the legacy, and then with your trait, here, Anthem, it is extended Anthems, you'll be able to get another 25 seconds out of that, so almost 2 minutes. Okay, so we can see that right now, Lesser Anthem 3 Composure is the next one to do. Oh, Lord Zach, that's very generous of you, thank you. Well, that is delightful. Well, I need to get out of combat here so I can do some flips on screen or something. Let's see. Flip. No. Flip. Dun, 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 dun. Awesome. We'll just do some flips there. Well, hooray for the LOTRO plugin community. That's awesome. Thank you so much for your donation to children's hospitals and just making the world a better place. Oh, that's delightful. Cool. Well, that's neat. I guess we're done. Now, I think several streamers are hoping that Cordovan will go ahead and increase the goal for this coming Friday. It's going to be a 16-hour stream with around, 10 different streamers, including several SSG employees, Cordovan and MVP, and the person who's in charge of localization coordination. I'm very excited to hear them just talk about whatever they want to, because that's going to be great. So yeah, I hope the goal will be increased to match the generosity of the community. But thank you so much for helping us reach this arbitrary but very pleasing amount, Lord Zach. That's great. Oh, sweet. Okay, with that being said, we've reached a point where we have updated this logic. Oh, but you know what I forgot to do is come back into the update function and delete this stuff here, because that's going to be overpowering anything else. So, oh, I can't delete all of it though. We've got a current time in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and redo our test and make sure we're still getting the right results. But we're going to need to reload that plugin, aren't we? Okay. So that's the goal, though, is we want to see a anthem that was not the priority is now the priority again, thanks to time passing and corn accumulating as it goes. Okay, so for that we're going to need the greater anthem 1, because as long as you only have the lesser anthem, our logic says we'd rather you do the greater anthem to get the combined effect than just do the lesser. Awesome. Oh my goodness, there's a rounding error? Lord Zach is saying, if you look at the sidebar, it's 19,999. Apparently, the JavaScript that runs this embedded control over on the left here is rounding. We'll take care of it. Don't worry. Oh, so we're almost at 25 seconds here. Yes, and we still see that we want that lesser anthem resonance. And in general, if you're being a minstrel and you're interacting with the system, you do want to prefer using the lesser anthems over the graders, at least for lesser anthem resonance and dissonance, because those do give you a personal buff of some sort. So you have the fellowship buff and the personal buff. And so you do want to go ahead and get this plus 5% outgoing healing and minus 10% to healing inductions for yourself. You prefer that over doing the greater one, which does not give a personal effect, just a fellowship effect. So that just, when you're ordering these things in your priority queue, you'll want your lessers to be first and your graders. I mean, you could do it the other way. I'm not even sure. Now that I looked at it, I'm like, why would you ever want to do graders over lessers? Maybe it would make sense to just say Anthem 1, Anthem 2, Anthem 3, instead of breaking out lesser or greater. Interesting. Now, don't worry about that, Lord Zach. No more fees for you. We'll take care of it.
I gotta find the link.
Actually, yeah, where's that link? I think Little Redhead's going to top it up because a donation like yours deserves to be like in my heart. I know it was your donation that got us there. Okay, so yeah, now that I'm looking at it, I'm very tempted to combine these. That's a great do item. Should the priority queue combine lesser and greater into a single row using the effect icon. Because that really makes a lot more sense to me. I'm not going to do it right now, but I don't think you'd ever want... But composure and prowess are different. They're different. And there's... let's see. Where's composure? Composure does not do that. Composure has a fellowship, and prowess has a fellowship. So you might actually care. You might actually care about what order those come in. Okay, we'll leave it. But in general, you would always want resonance first, then compassion. You'd always want dissonance first, and then war. And then maybe you care about composure, prowess. Maybe prowess, because it's the better one, quote unquote, right? Like if you're going to do one of them, you'd want it to be that one. But once you have them both up, you don't care. And lesser can be done with a single ballad, and greater can be done with two ballads. So I still kind of feel like, okay. Lesser only takes one ballad, greater takes two, and lesser resonance / dissonance gives personal effect. Okay, so yeah, the other thing is if you bypassed composure and only had prowess trained, that'd be fine. Prowess would show up without composure. Yeah. I think that's a fine ideal for later. So I guess there's just it's time to kind of knock off what have we done. Okay. So we had some documentation. Using the active skill projection of a skill, we can see stuff. We did see stuff. We used it. That's awesome. Let's get rid of that. We have a UI that shows the next anthem in your priority queue. Remember to do +2 for how much time is left. That's an idea. We haven't done that yet. So I'm going to hoist that on up. Anthem cooldown time is detectable. Yep. Every 5 seconds, call the function to recheck. That should have been milliseconds. Every 0.5 seconds. But more importantly, we found a better way. We don't need to do that every single time. Agatha says, they just tweeted that the goal was met. It's official. Neat. Maybe they round up too. Awesome. Agatha, do you mean SSG did, or do you mean that the Extra Life people did it on our behalf? I'm not on Twitter very much. Let's see. Twitter or LOTRO? Yeah, I don't have an account, so it's spamming me to log in. SSG did. Awesome. Hey! Well, Nikki Ebright has donated a little money to push us over the top. Well, thank you, Nikki. I'm going to go ahead and do some flips. Woohoo! Yay, plugin community! Yay! I should put some spins in there. I mean, horizontal spins. The vertical spins are good. Okay, so we were in the to-do file. So every 0.5 seconds, we found a better way. Awesome. Get rid of it. Use stance change to recheck the anthem cooldown. Oh, interesting. Are we taking that into account? Stance. Set anthem background from stance. Oh. Well, hey. Audrey Russell has donated $1. Yay! Back pain asks in chat, how are you capped at 65? Are you on Treebeard? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Although, if you haven't seen it, the Stone of the Tortoise is also a very handy device for leveling yourself, or to stop gaining experience. I get this oftentimes on my main character, my completionist character, because just doing all the things. LOTRO is very generous with with the experience you get from quests. And so if you do all the quests in an area, you'll easily outlevel that area, even over here on Treebeard where we get like 40%. So yay, donations! Even over here on Treebeard we get, 40% of the experience? Oh, well, I'm on Deadly, so I get another plus 20%. But yeah. Oh, hey. We're getting some error messages. What do we have? 1013, Anthem reset. Oh, Anthem reset time changed a nil value. Okay, what's up with that? Anthem reset time. Really? I could have sworn I brought that in. Oh, that is a function here. Okay, Anthem reset time changed, yes. So where is that currently getting called from? It's not. Okay. Let's go ahead and pull that in. Must have missed that in our refactoring. Okay, and then what's missing? Oh, haha, need to change that to here, and then there we go. That's better. Okay, well, great. Gotta pay attention to those error messages. Oh, nice. Little Redhead has pointed to the tweet by LOTRO. Awesome. I'm gonna go take a look at that. Okay, now we're not getting that error message. Awesome. Oh, there it is. Thank you to everyone who helped us hit 20K ahead of time. Aw, and Farathan credits Lord Zach Bora for that donation. Excellent. Yay, plugin community. Okay, so where was my thought? I'm all over the place. So the stance change needs to recheck the Anthem cooldown. Okay. Anthem cooldown. So we need to call Anthem reset time changed. Well, we need to check Anthem cooldown seconds. Where is that happening? Well, we could just call Anthem reset time changed. That would be pretty easy. So that was in the stance changed. And so we can go ahead and use this text here to document what we're doing. And accidentally hitting page up. Okay, using stance change to recheck Anthem will be necessary starting with update 34. Melody stance now increases Anthem durations by 15 seconds. So where is the Anthem? Oops, no. An Anthem. Okay. So we can go ahead and you do self.buff window, and this is the Anthem reset time changed. Anthem reset time changed. And we can send unanthem, and then we don't need to send any args because they're not being used. And we can double check that that's working by going ahead and seeing this debug statement. All right, let's take a look at that. Unload, reload. And we're going to go ahead and change our stance here. Ow. All right, ISOR in effect confirmed. Okay, and we got an anthem reset time changed when we moved stances. Now, we're not bothering to differentiate which stance. Like if we were in distant stance and we're going to a resident stance, it wouldn't actually matter. But the anthem reset time change function is super short. And it calls this function, which is also pretty short, and only calls recalculate the anthem priority if something changed. Awesome. So cool. Okay, so so we need to include that in the list of changes. Yeah. But done. So that's done. So things I want to do in the future, and we're kind of come up on the end of the stream here. So if you have any last minute thoughts, questions, concerns, let's toss them into chat here. But in the meantime, things I'm interested in is this priority anthem thing seems neat to me, but maybe not every Minstrel player would want it. So I think an option to, like a little checkbox, use anthem priority, and then you can set the anthem priority here. So a little checkbox to enable or disable it, I think is good. And I think updating the background to include a space for the anthem is a good idea. Right now it's just hovering out here next to the window, which to me feels a little clunky. Now some of the layouts don't have a window, and so it's a little bit easier for it to just sort of fit in. But for the layout with a window, I feel like it would make sense. It's also bigger than the ballads on this top row, and we could make the icon smaller. But, you know, you got the size of the ballads which are smaller and the anthems which are larger, so I don't know about that. But right now the anthem's just in a fixed spot, so when we change themes, the, oops. Oh, that's no anthems. So when we change themes, it doesn't actually change position yet, so that's a thing to do. So that's on my to-do list because, yeah, maybe not everyone wants a priority system for the anthem. Oh, that's what it was. I was trying to remember where the overlay was, and the overlay was specifying... lesser or greater here, and it is not working. So yes, that was definitely a good thing to call out. No, L plus P is not working. I'm not sure what caused it to stop working, but that's worth digging into. Okay. Cool. So lots of other thoughts that I've jotted down. I think I'll hold off on reviewing all of them right now. But, neat. I feel like this has been very good progress. Let's go ahead and do a little quick commit. So we've got only recalculate, don't call update all the time. Okay, so we've got that. We've got the next anthem blow cooldown time that we're setting. We're calculating the shortest remaining time. The separate variable for is it set or not, I'm not super pleased with that. I think maybe we should just have it default to 0, and then if it is 0, yeah, treat it as it is. So remaining time is greater than shortest remaining time, or shortest remaining time is 0. So the separate variable there, I think we could kill. In fact, let's bring it on over. Get rid of that. Use this not equal to 0? Question mark. Okay. In fact, since we're doing not shortest time remaining set, we're actually looking at get rid of not shortest remaining time. Use that equals 0. Yeah. Neat. Okay, so that's good. But in the meantime, it works. It's fine. And then what else do we have? We added the logic to actually pay attention to that shortest remaining time. If it's bigger than the anthem cooldown seconds, then we want to recalculate when we hit anthem cooldown seconds left. I think this is a depressingly long line, actually. 967. Okay. So we want a local excess cooldown time equals shortest remaining time minus that. And then we can say current time plus excess cooldown time. I like giving names to subparts of expressions. Instead of just like, why are we adding shortest remaining time and minus this? We can just name it. That's very good for our future self. We can come in and say, oh, excess cooldown time. Now I just have to figure out what I meant by excess cooldown time. I don't have to figure out why I am subtracting one number from another number. And then the next anthem below cooldown time, we have current time plus the excess cooldown time. That makes a lot more sense to me. So that's one of the reasons why I like to review the code before we take that snapshot, before we commit it, is I like to double check that we didn't miss a chance to make things a little bit more clear. All right, and then the anthem reset time changed. We had to bring that function in. It's almost just fixing a mistake. In fact, let's go ahead and fix that mistake separately. Anthem reset time, anthem reset time. Cool. Moved anthem reset time changed from main to buff window. That's just its own little thing. Option window doesn't count here. So we also have call anthem reset time changed from minstrel stance changed. That's its own little thing. And then the rest of this is the don't update all the time. Awesome. And that's just changing buff window. It's a very isolated change when you get down to it. Awesome. Okay. Well, that's fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and reload, just make sure I didn't mistype anything. Rock on. I did miss something. Anthem reset time change still has a turbine right line at the beginning. Hilarious. That happens. Debug statements creep in all the time because you want them. And the right way to do it is have a logging framework where you can set the debug level in a more coherent manner, maybe. But sometimes you really just want to turn on a single debug statement and not all the debug statements. So that's okay. We're going to come in here and then commented out a debug statement. All right. So include that, commit that, push that, done. So ideally, we can come on in here. Your class is not compatible. What did I just do? Oh, I clicked on the captain trainer. That's great. Fair enough, captain trainer. So even with the refreshing this every half a second logic in there, this was still very playable over the weekend. We had some kinship playing time, and I was able to make use of this, and I feel like I did a much better job keeping my possible anthems running. Now, lesser and greater Anthem 2, very doable. I mean, you have so much excess time with the plus 30-second legacy trace tree. But getting both Anthem 2 and Anthem 3 running, and kind of consistently, I felt like this really gave me a chance of making that happen. Or if I wasn't going to have them running, I knew why I wasn't going to have them running. Like sometimes I just waited too long to get Anthem 3 out, and Anthem 2 became the priority. It's much more important for me as a red line minstrel, and that's okay. But the important thing is I'm hitting the wrong anthem less. Like, now we can see, well, I need to hit lesser Anthem 2 dissonance. I don't have to be like, oh, should I hit war or dissonance? I don't have to think about it as much. That's exciting. I feel like I heard a firework outside. So, yeah, I feel like I was able to get all 3 of my anthems up more as a redline mage. And when I wasn't doing that, it was a little bit more intentional about which anthem was up. I wasn't just hitting anthems more randomly, or at least like, oh, I've got to hit something, and hoisting the anthem cooldown up here in the UI instead of just being on my bottom bar definitely makes it more visible for me during play, where I can actually pay attention to it. Although in play, it's really more like maybe over here, and that puts this priority anthem button right smack dab in the middle of my field of view where I can actually pay attention to it. Oftentimes I was finding the anthem cooldowning here on the very bottom bar, I just wasn't getting to it. I wasn't seeing it in time. And there's other options to that than writing a plugin, to be sure. But writing a plugin is an option. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. As a side note, now that we're no longer doing Dutch language classes, and that's not taking nearly so much time, I've been thinking about getting back into some crafting. I have this chainmail project. Ooh, that really frightens the cats. I have this chainmail project that I need to get progress done on. And so, if that seems like a thing that people might want to watch on a Twitch stream, I guess I could do that, but it seems even more niche than like a plugin stream. So, if that sounds at all interesting to watch me build out a tapestry made out of chainmail, I would love to know if that's worth setting up like a dual camera setup so you can see all the bits of that as it's happening. Let's see, do I have a smaller piece? Yes. So I make them in little squares like this. It's almost like a granny square, except it's made out of chainmail. And then I stitch them together into rows and bigger pieces. And so, you know, it's a slow progress, I guess. But, you know, if people like chainmail or like watching crafting, that would be interesting to hear. It'd probably be more like on a weekend or, I don't know, some other day of the week. Okay. Either way, I think we've hit the end. That's awesome. I just have to figure out where all my stuff went. Cool. Okay. Yes. Then that is everything we're going to cover today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins and on your generous contributions to children's hospitals through the Extra Life campaign. This has been awesome. I do hope to see you all here next week. And until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.